And hi again, everyone. Welcome to the WKYC High School Football Playoff Game of the Week preview show. I'm Dave DiNatale, along with Tyler Carey, as we move to round number 2, the regional quarterfinal round of the 2021 Ohio High School Athletic Association playoffs. And TC, we made the announcement officially Monday, but for those who haven't heard, we're going to step from Division 1 this week to Division 2 and check out some action in Region 6.
Absolutely, Dino. And for those who don't know, Friday night when we kind of knew what the pairings were going to be, there was a very robust, intricate discussion kind of deciding our pathway, not just for round 2, but for the rounds moving forward. And eventually we decided on what I think and what you think is a pretty under-the-radar good matchup, and that is the game between Olmsted Falls and Barberton in Division 2's Region 6. Now, we've said this region is wide open. These are two teams that won conference championships this past year. Barberton over in the Suburban League, I believe it was the American Conference, and then Olmsted Falls in the SWC. We've seen these teams before on our Game of the Week. We've seen them, I believe, both lose in our Game of the Week, some heartbreakers before. But these are two squads, Dino, that I believe have legitimate regional championship aspirations. And the winner of this game is going to gain a lot of momentum moving forward as we go through these playoffs.
Yeah, and I think they both got signature wins towards the end of the season. Olmsted Falls, in their case, to me, it was routing, not just beating, but routing Avon Lake at their place. I think it was like 35-3. I mean, it was, it came off that heartbreaking loss to Avon. And I thought that was Olmsted Falls. I thought that was their big moment this year, because that kept them in that championship race in the SWC, which you point out they ended up getting a tie for the conference title. And then obviously Barberton, on a night when it was storm delay, it was rainy down at their place against Aurora. They were the team to kind of slay the dragon, so to speak. Aurora had aspirations of being undefeated, and the Magics ended up winning. Alex Moore went out with an injury. More on him, by the way, coming up when we look at the matchups. But that was a huge win, not just this season, but I think for the program, for Barberton in general.
Totally agree. This is a team that has had success in the past, but they've always kind of had that albatross of, well, they're good, but what do they do when they play like the big time teams? And that win over Aurora, to me, was absolutely huge. Even if Alex Moore was out, to shut them down the way they did really, I think, made a statement. We talk about Barberton 10-1 right now, only loss coming to Stowe Monroe Falls back in week 2. They've had some good wins. They beat Highland, the number 1 seed in Region 6. This defense, I think, has been really, really solid. Just 47 points allowed over the last 5 games, only 7 in a round 1 win over Lakewood. The headline of this unit, lineman John Jackson. He's a Kent State commit, one of the best defensive players in Northeast Ohio. He's got a lot of help, too, in that front 7. I think if they can manage to slow down this Olmsted Falls team, this particularly in the running game, which we'll get to in a second, then that's going to be the key to victory.
Yeah, so when you look at Old Falls, you mentioned we saw them in the playoffs last year, got upset by North Royalton in that classic at their place. But, I remember being there last year, this time a year ago, and remembering that, the key to the Bulldogs, I mean, they love to run the football, and they're very, very proficient at it.
Well, and for them, it's Rocco Connie, who I remember seeing and hearing last year. He really had a great game that night. Unfortunately, his defense couldn't really hold off North Royalton, and that's why they lost that game. Falls, the Bulldogs, 8-2. They've kind of felt like a team on or 9-2, excuse me. Kind of felt like a team on a mission this year after that really shocking upset to a 1-6 Bears team. We talked about tying for the conference championship with Avon. They actually led Avon for most of that game. When they met a few weeks ago. They were up by a point in the fourth quarter. The Eagles ended up pulling away. And I think that was kind of the turning point in Avon's season. But that night, I think, really proved that Olmsted Falls can play with the big teams in the Southwestern Conference. They've had blowout wins in this recent winning streak over Avon Lake, as you mentioned, Berea Mid Park to knock the Titans out. of the conference championship picture. And then Valley Forge last week. We know the Patriots are a pretty good team. We saw them earlier in the season. Both these squads are really rolling right now, and as they say, something's got to give. So I'm going to be really anxious to see who gains the upper hand early in this game, as well as down the stretch, who can hold on and kind of avoid that, essentially what happened to Old Falls against Avon, where one team will just gain momentum and run away with it.
Yeah, I agree with you. Two sleepers for the Region 6 championship will square off Friday night. 6:50 will be our start time at WKYC.com. You can also check out the game on the WKYC app, on YouTube, and on Facebook Live, all of our social media platforms, and we will have the game for you live from Barberton. We are excited about it. It should be a lot of fun. Week 2 of our playoff coverage. Now, as we look, before we look at the other matchups, in the regional quarterfinals, we had you vote starting on Monday when we made the announcement of the game for our playoff performer of the week. And the one of you who voted is going to get a free meal from Chick-fil-A. TC, we gave, as we like to give people 3 options, we gave you 3 options to vote on. Who's our performer of the week?
Well, technically, Dino, we sort of had 4 options, although 2 of them were kind of a whole package there, and those were the 2 running backs we saw. Right. Those were the 2 running backs we saw from St. Ignatius last week, Marty Lenahan and Joey Georges. They were in second. Levi Ellis from Elyria Catholic had a very good game. But the winner, we were talking about Avon, quarterback Sam Datillo, who had 383 total yards, 6 total touchdowns, 3 rushing, 3 passing in last week's win in the first round over Toledo St. Francis de Sales. Congratulations to Sam. We know how good he is. We know how good his team is. And I got a feeling, Dino, we're going to see him and the Eagles down the road as we go forward in our Game of the Week slate this year. But again, Sam Datillo, Avon quarterback, our playoff performer of the week. Congratulations to him. And to whoever wins the lucky free meal from Chick-fil-A, congratulations to you as well.
Absolutely. Get the chicken sandwich. We highly recommend it. Okay, let's
the original chicken sandwich.
That's it. The original home of the original chicken sandwich at Chick-fil-A. TC, if you can share your screen, we've got to look now at the playoff matchups here as we move into the next round, and we can take a quick look at what people will expect here for Friday night and Saturday. Starting first in Division I, Region 1 is. We obviously we saw St. Ignatius get past Mentor in that classic matchup, but what are we looking at here for this weekend?
Well, as you said, Dino, you can go on WKYC.com now and get every second round matchup involving teams from our 17 county viewing area. 65 local teams remaining. I remember you asking me last week how many teams were in there, and I didn't have an answer for you. It was 129. Out of 400 some teams. That number has now been cut not quite in half, but only 65 teams left. Let's start with Division I, where it's all local. St. Edward, as expected, getting that big, just blowing out Lorraine, 1-9 Lorraine in the first round. They get Berea Mid-Park, who had a very nice win over Brunswick in the opening round. Canton, McKinley, and Jackson, I think that's going to be a very close Federal League clash. Medina, as expected, remains undefeated. They play Cleveland Heights, who had kind of an improbable come-from-behind victory over Elyria. We talked about that, the fumble return touchdown to win it with just seconds left. And we mentioned St. Ignatius. They're going to be headed to Stowe Monroe Falls for a road game in round 2. Kind of a rarity for St. Ignatius to not be playing at Byers Field or in a neutral site in the second round. But I think you and I talked about it. So many good teams in this region, but right now it looks like collision course St. Edward Medina.
Yeah, I think so. But I'm going to be real interested to see how St. Ignatius does. They had some health issues. The quarterback got hurt towards the end of the game against Mentor. So we'll obviously see by Friday what his status is. I'm real curious to see how Ignatius kind of picks themselves up from that Mentor clash and goes to Stowe.
Almost let that game get away from them Friday night, but in the end they did hang on. Stowe's had their own injury issues, so we're just gonna have to wait and see. Division 2, we'll start with Region 5. All chalk so far in Region 5. Benedictine, the number 1 seed, moves on. They'll play Riverside. We were really discussing this matchup for a possible game of the week, Walsh, Jesuit, and Hudson in the end, just lost out to Olmsted Falls Barberton. But I think that's going to be a really, really, really good game down in Summit County. Nordonia playing Willoughby South, and then Archbishop Hoban, ho-hum, gets a blowout win. They'll be playing Austintown Fitch. I really think whoever wins that Walsh Jesuit Hudson game could possibly be positioning themselves as a contender in this region, despite being kind of a lower seed.
You and I felt going into the start of the postseason that Walsh Jesuit was the kind of the unsung team there as a 5th seed. They lost by 1 point to both Benedictine and Hoban in the regular season. So I'm curious to see how they fare against Hudson. I mean, Hudson's 9-2, and they had close losses this year. And you and I both think the Explorers are a very good team. So that one shapes out to be a classic.
Both of the Explorers' losses by just 1 point each. So they're that close to being 10-0 and possibly number 1 in this region. So yeah, I do think that's going to be a classic. We'll go to Region 6 and Region 7 here, starting with Region 6. And there's our link to our game of the week. As you saw there, there's Barberton Olmsted Falls. Number 1, Highland moves on. They'll play Anthony Wayne. Avon, number 2, they move on. They'll host Fremont Ross this week. And then down in Region 7, an all-Federal League matchup again between Greene and North Canton Hoover. Massillon, of course, moving on. And then we'll get to a bigger upset in a little bit down in Division 4. But we did have a major, major upset in this region. The 14-seed Worcester moving on. They'll play Dublin Scioto in the first round. But looking at both of these, I think whoever wins that Olmsted Falls Barberton game is likely going to play Avon. And I think Avon, no disrespect to Highland, but I think Avon right now is the favorite in Region 6.
I completely agree. And I think either regional semifinal game, again, Avon's got a tough one. They've got to get past the Little Giants of Fremont Ross, but either a rematch against Olmsted Falls or a clash with Barberton, that would be Avon's biggest, obviously their biggest test of the year in a playoff game, but I think that would be tremendous. But I still think right now Avon is the best team in that region based on what we saw against Berea Mid-Park.
Totally agree, and especially if Sam Datillo keeps playing the way he did last week. Our favorite region, Division 3, Region 9, only 5 local teams left, but some good ones. Chardon, as expected. They had a little bit of a tough go at first with Akron East, but in the end pull away and win by 30+. They'll play Streetsboro in round 2. Dover hosting Aurora. Now, Aurora, that 7-seed, 9-2 record is deceptive. Alex Moore, the quarterback, is back after that pretty significant leg injury. He is back in the lineup, and he's playing pretty well for the Greenmen, so you know they're probably going to be a contender going forward. And then Kenston's still alive, but they're going to be playing an always tough Steubenville team over in the Chagrin Falls, Bainbridge area.
Yeah, this region's about the quarterbacks that are back. So you've got Alex Moore back with the Greenmen, as you mentioned, and Nico Giorgio is back at quarterback for Kenston. So for both those teams now, that changes the complexion of their offenses completely. So Kenston becomes much more of a passing team with Giorgio, and that, JP Germano becomes just a wide receiver, and he doesn't have to worry about being a wildcat quarterback anymore.
He's a good wide receiver. He doesn't have to.
He
can just worry about doing what he does best.
Yeah, and with Moore now, now all of a sudden Aurora goes back to being a strong offensive team. So, that they're going to have to go. The problem with Aurora is they lost those 2 games. They're going to Dover as opposed to being home for week 2. But, I think it's going to be a really good second round playoff matchup, despite it being a 2 versus 7 seed. I think they're pretty evenly matched.
Suffice to say, I still think Chardon is the favorite in this region, but I don't think it's just going to be a coronation at this point, whether it be Aurora with Moore coming back, Dover could make a run, and even Kenston with Nico Giorgio back. I know they beat Kenston 49-0 when we saw them earlier in the season. I'm not saying Kenston would beat them, but I don't think it would be a blowout like it was back then. So it's going to be very, very interesting to keep an eye on. Region 10, 7 out of the 8 teams local. Norton had a really, really tough go of it with Copley. Barely won that game, but they did survive and they move on. They'll play Holy Name in the first round. Good matchup, 4-5, Padua Franciscan and Mansfield. West Holmes stays undefeated. They'll host Tiffin Columbian. And then here's the GLC title game rematch, Buckeye and Rocky River. This was another contender for a game of the week. And I think that, especially with Norton struggling, I think this region is wide open, Dino.
Yeah, all of a sudden, because Norton undefeated, and thought, well, geez, who's going to be able to beat them? But I think it opened the door for West Holmes. But I think it opens the door for whoever wins that Buckeye Rocky River game and that Mansfield Padua game to maybe claim supremacy. And keep in mind, Mansfield's had a lot of experience as a dominant playoff team in the past. So
state title runner-up just 2 years ago.
Exactly. So if you're looking for a quote dark horse or whatever, I'd look at Mansfield right now.
Totally agree with that. This is going to be fun to watch in Region 10. All right, let's go to Division 4. Because I could sense in the broadcast last night some befuddledness, or last Friday, from you when one of these results came in. Starting with Region 13, Perry moves on. They'll play Girard. Good East Side Cleveland matchup between Glenville and VASJ. Of course, Jeff Rotsky is back on the sidelines after getting a stay in his recruiting case. He will be coaching for the Vikings. We'll check Region 15 real quick. Indian Valley and Carrollton both move on. But the big story, Dino, Region 14. Keystone, Shelby, okay, they move on. Perkins gets a win. The upset we were all thinking about, it happened. In Region 14, 16 seed Milan Edison upsets number 1 Bellevue 23-22. They're moving on. They'll play Perkins. And again, just listening to you calling the St. Ignatius Mentor game, I could tell there was some shock, not just from you, but from others in the press box.
from the press box. And for those who might not like the expanded playoffs, you might be sending a Christmas card, or if you do like let's say this, if you do like the expanded playoffs, send a Christmas card to Milan Edison, because that's going to be, I think, the reasoning that the OHSA can give, the example that, hey, this worked. See what happened in Division 4. We had a 16 seed topple a 1 seed, and that's what we're talking about. Forget about the lopsided scores in Divisions 1 and 2. Focus on the small schools. But congratulations. With all, I was kind of snarky about it Friday, but congratulations to Edison, because that's a great win, and that's great for the kids, and that's great for the program. And, that was fun, for all the joking around. It is very cool to see that kind of an upset.
And this has, I will point this out, this has been a very tough year for the community over in Milan and Berlin Township. Of course, an alum of Milan Edison was Maxton Soviak, one of the soldiers who lost his life in the attack in Afghanistan earlier this year. He was a star football player for the Chargers, helped them, I believe, reach a state semifinal one year. So that they're going to be playing, they've got to be playing with his spirit with them always. I know our Marissa Sines did some reporting on this playoff expansion last Friday, talked to Tim Street from the OHSAA, talked to some parents from the Shaker Heights Medina game on both sides and even though the Shaker Heights parents knew they were going to get blown out, they're like, you know what, it's worth it because we get to see our kids play one more time. So I guess that is the positive we see in this. And also I do want to point out, there are differences between Division 1. We saw a team like 1-9 Lorraine making it in. There was an 0-10 team in the Cincinnati area who made it. Edison is 5-5. So when the regions are a little bit bigger in certain other divisions, it is a little bit different. But like you said, hats off to the Chargers. A great win for them. And maybe they can keep it going against Perkins. That would certainly be fun to see. Okay,
Why not?
Absolutely. Let's move on to Division 5. Region 17 and 18. We talked about Region 17, Dino. 4 undefeated teams. They all move on, and they could potentially all be facing each other next week if they win again. Kirtland's going to play Manchester. Garfield will host Bel Air. South Range hosting Crestwood, our local team. And then Southeast Garaway, I actually think that's going to be a very good matchup. And down in Region 18, Elyria Catholic, the 2 seed, could have a chance to possibly win that regional title. Also, another upset, 13 seed Waynedale moving on. They'll face Ottawa Glandorf. But again, I'll go back to Region 17. That is a deep, deep region. And the prospect of having 4 unbeaten teams duking it out a week from now is really, really giving me goosebumps, I got to say.
Yeah, it's easy to take for granted because of Kirtland and their winning streak and everything they've done to just say, oh yeah, they're gonna sashay through the region, no problem. When they, if and when they get back to the state semis and then the state championship game, but they will have earned it.
Absolutely, 51 wins in a row now for the Kirtland Hornets, longest winning streak in the country right now. Division 6, 2 regions again. Region 21. There's Mogador, as always, moving on. They'll face Hillsdale. Columbia, we know what a great season they've had, only that 1 loss to Keystone. Well, they get a big win in their first game, and they'll host Black River. Also, Norwayne, the 6th seed, will take on Springfield. And then down in Region 22, Collins Western Reserve gets a win. They'll play top-seeded Archbold. And how about Weller Crestview out of Ashland County? They're unbeaten, the 2 seed, and they'll host Colonel Crawford on Saturday night.
Anybody left in Division 7?
Yes, there is. We will move on to Region 25, the final region. We have 6 local teams left. There's Lucas, number 1. They'll host Malvern. We saw Independence earlier in the year. I think that's going to be a good matchup against Dalton, a good 4-5 game. Norwalk St. Paul, always a very formidable foe. They're the 2 seed. And then Cuyahoga Heights, moving on. They'll head to Warren to take on John F. Kennedy. So as you can see, Dino, in all regions, a lot of teams remaining in our area and a lot of teams, I think, that could have a shot at making the state championship game. So look, I'm anything can happen. I'm going to bet that we're going to be broadcasting at least 1 or 2 state championship games down the road.
I would think so. I would think that, we've had years where there have been 3 or 4 teams, from Northeast Ohio that have gotten to the state championship. I think that's reasonable to anticipate that, given what we've seen this year. But that is still to come. What we do know for now is that we are heading to the regional quarterfinal round, the round number 2 here of the playoffs. And again, our game of the week will be Friday night down in Barberton as the Magics host Olmsted Falls in Division 2 Region 6 action. I'll be on the call. TC will be feeding me scores all night long. It's going to continue to be fun, folks. And if you're heading down to the game, bundle up. It's fall weather now, baby.
Are you going to be indoors calling this game? Please tell me they have a spot for you inside the press box.
They do. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. I don't think I think I can make it through this postseason without having to be outside or under a tent or something. At least, knock on wood, that's my hope. But we will talk to everybody from Barberton Friday night. TC, as always, my friend, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dino. It's going to be fun. It was fun last week, and we're only getting started. And that's probably the most fun part of all.
That's exactly right. For Tyler Carey, I'm Dave DiNatale. Thanks so much for watching our Game of the Week preview show right here on WKYC.com.